are you? Good. Last week, I walked into a local Submarine Sandwich franchise store, and here's what happened. Oh, thank you. I walked in the door. There were 3 employees behind the counter and 1 customer. Nobody greeted me. Nobody said anything to me. Now, I knew I was coming here to talk to you, so I purposely looked at my watch, and I stood at the counter, and guess how long it took before an employee said something to me? 4.5 minutes. From what you've learned in my book, Smile and Succeed for Teens, what did those employees do wrong? Caitlin?
They didn't greet you.
Exactly. And who else can tell me why is that so important? In the blue, what's your name?
Noel.
I know, how are you? Why is that so important?
Because of first impressions.
Exactly. And who can tell me why the first impression is so critical in business? Yes, and your name, please?
Max.
Oh, hi, Max.
Hi. And it's just to make a sale for your product.
It's critical to make a sale. Because if you don't, excuse me, if you don't greet that customer properly, when you walk in a business and you don't get greeted properly, how does it make you feel? Who can tell me? Is it Ethan?
Unwelcomed?
Yes. Unwelcome, exactly. And then do you feel like you want to purchase something from that business? Or what do you want to do after you feel unwelcome?
Well, I just kind of look around and then after a while I just leave if nothing much is happening.
Exactly. 70% of customers, that's 3 out of 4 people, will leave a business and buy something somewhere else if the sales staff doesn't care. If you don't get anything else out of today's presentation, wherever you work or volunteer or when somebody comes to your house, what's the most important thing that you do first as soon as they walk into your business? Yes, you in the blue sweatshirt. What's your name?
Ryan.
Yes, Ryan, perfect. Greet them. That is critical. When I wrote this book, I thought, if I can just get kids to greet somebody and say hello, you will be, after reading this, you will be way ahead of the pack. Because most companies don't do that. Companies lost $82 billion. Does anybody know how much $82 billion is? It's a lot of money. $82 billion last year because of poor customer service. And great customer service does not cost anything. Before we go any further, I want to thank you guys. Thank you so much for your book reviews and your letters. I love those. And thank you, Emily, for sending those to me. I read every one of them, and they really helped. And I want to tell you, I was happy to hear that most of you said, I would have liked to have seen more information on this and this, because that was kind of my goal with the book. I thought, well, I spent 9 months with teenagers going over the book twice a week, and we had to really trim it down, because my goal was for you to be able to read it. And I'm glad you're saying you wanted more content. I'm glad you're not saying to me, oh gosh, it was too long, I couldn't get through it. So we purposely made it a crash course. There was one really good comment that I want to address. And somebody said they thought it was okay to say yep or no problem when somebody says thank you. And let me explain why in my book and why can somebody tell me why that's not okay? When somebody says thank you, why is it not okay to answer with no problem or yeah? Anybody else new that hasn't answered already? What's your name in the back? Savannah?
Maybe because it's not polite.
Exactly. It's not polite. No matter what you think, that's not polite. And to back that up, a couple years ago with my first book, I was talking to Rodrigo Corral. He's the top book cover designer in the United States. He was just featured in the Wall Street Journal. And I ended up not using him because he had great designs, but they just didn't work for my first book. But when we were first talking, he said, Kurt, I really am interested in this subject because my wife and I went to a restaurant the other night in New York City, and I told the waiter, I said, oh, I'd like to order that $80 bottle of wine. And the waiter said, I'll go get it right now for you, sir. And Rodrigo said, thank you. And the waiter said, no problem. And Rodrigo said to me, why is that a problem? I just spent $80. Why isn't he saying you're welcome? So you never want to say yeah or no problem. Oh, I'm sorry, your name?
Yeah, I was Meredith.
Hi,
I was
Meredith.
quite confused on that because I thought that isn't that the same thing as saying you're welcome?
No, and that's why I wanted to bring up, very good point. Thank you for being so honest with that. Very good point. No, it's not. No problem is a bit disrespectful, and maybe somebody else can, Emily, do you have a way to explain that better than I can, maybe, as far as no problem?
Just kind of like what you said, saying no problem. Well, it shouldn't be a problem. I should be very gracious that you just spent $80 and probably spent another $100 on dinner.
Exactly.
That customer doesn't have to do that. They don't have to come in and spend $1 million on dinner. You really should be grateful and welcoming to them for doing that for you.
Thank you.
Okay?
You said
They've
it
gone
much,
out of their way.
you explained it much better than I could. So does that make sense, Meredith, what Emily said? Thank you so much. That was very nice of you to tell me why you said that. The skills in my book, why, can somebody tell me why these are important for you to know, especially down the road? Who can tell me that's new, that hasn't, oh, and your name, please?
Drake,
Hi, Drake.
because it like helps you be successful in life.
Exactly. In school, in work, in life, I can tell you one thing. I just didn't pull these out of my pocket. We spent months, it's based on my first book that Neiman Marcus uses for training. It won 8 awards. This is all the little things that if you do these things right, you will delight customers, and if you do them wrong, you'll probably never see your customer again. So exactly, to be successful in life. When I had a business, I hired based on I had a lot of kids come in our store that wanted to work at our store because we had a really cool store. It was called Surf's Up, and we sold snowboards, we sold windsurfers. Back then, windsurfing was really popular. We had tons of ladies' swimwear. Back then, Oakley sunglasses were in, so we carried every single color they made. We had rollerblades, we had skateboards, surf clothing, we gave windsurfing lessons. So we had a lot of kids that thought it would be really cool to work at Surf's Up. Unfortunately, they thought it would be really cool and that they could just kind of sit around and not do much, which was not the case. It's a business. So how I would hire kids, if I had a team come in, and I'd have kids that were in 10th or 11th grade. If they came in, we got a ton of kids that would come in and say, hey, you got a job application? And I knew right then, I'm not hiring you, but yeah, let me give you a job application. I knew right that second, I am not hiring you because you're not polite. So if I had a kid that said, excuse me, sir, I'm really interested in working here, and he made good eye contact and smiled, could I please have a job application? I would say, sure, and what's your name? He might say, Mike, hi Mike, do you want to fill that out right now, and maybe we can, if you have a few minutes, we can talk right now. Because it's tough to find kids that have the skills in this book. And that's why these skills are so important. I talked to a local restaurant manager the other day. I complimented him on his staff. It's in Milford, I won't name the restaurant. And he told me, and this is something important for you guys to all know, he said to me, Kurt, these are the cream of the crop. I can't hire any of these teens. Now I asked him, I said, why is that? I already kind of knew the answer. Why do you think he said he couldn't hire, and you, what's your name?
Austin?
Hi Austin, why do you think he said he couldn't hire any of the teens that come in to get jobs there?
Because they weren't being polite to him.
Exactly, exactly. Anybody else? Who else can tell me?
They weren't being very respectful.
Yes. Anybody else? Can anybody else tell me why he couldn't? Your name?
Melody?
Hi Melody.
Electronics, like they're always on the
Huge. It's a huge problem. What he told me was, I said, why? And I already knew the answer. I figured it was electronics and bad manners. And he said, because they're all on these they're like this all the time. I can't hire them. He said, I cannot hire any of these teens. He said, 4 out of 5 of them, if I do hire them, they're gone in a week. He said, last week, the owner caught one of the teens on their text phone. The owner said, you either got to put that away or you go home. Well, the kid chose to go home. So the lesson here is that these skills will easily help you get a job because you're going to be so much better than all those other people competing for the same job. If you have these good people skills where you have your phones away, you're polite, you're respectful, and you're a hard worker. That's the other thing he did tell me. He said, these teens don't want to work hard. But the big thing was the electronics, and he told me, I can't have them waiting on my customers. They don't know how to make eye contact. They simply don't have the people skills. I can't afford to lose a customer. And that's the same way I was. When I would interview somebody for a job, and just so you know, this is how it works. When I was interviewing somebody, I was always thinking about, and what is your name in the front? What is it?
AJ?
AJ. If I was interviewing you, I'd always be thinking, okay, can I trust AJ to wait on my customers? We have $100,000 in this store. Is he somebody that if Emily walked in, would she come back again? Or is he somebody that maybe he's got an attitude and he's gonna turn a customer off? Because we had a lot of kids come in there that were really good snowboarders, really good windsurfers, and I didn't hire them because they had a little bit of an attitude. Or they didn't have good eye contact, they didn't have good people skills. So we hired people like AJ, who has good eye contact, good people skills, and we trained them how to windsurf, how to snowboard, on all the technical benefits. So we hired for attitude and we trained for skill. So these skills are super, super important. And when you get into the top 10, if you just do the top 10 skills in here, you'll be way ahead of the pack. Can anybody tell me what one of the top 10 skills in this book is in Smile and Succeed? Yes.
Smile.
Yes, that's huge. Why is that so important?
Because when you smile, it kind of shows that you're interested and that you want to get to know the person and you want that job.
Exactly. That's huge.
Good eye contact?
Good eye contact. That's huge. Now remember, in the real world, when you go in a lot of these businesses, when you walk in some of these stores, unfortunately, a lot of them don't do these types of things. I walked in another store last night, a local electronics retailer. There were two teens behind the counter. I walked in. I purposely didn't say anything. I wanted to see if they'd say anything to me or make eye contact. They didn't. I was in there for 10 minutes. They never said anything to me. Now when I left, what should they have said when I left? Can anybody tell me? Let me get somebody new here. Yes, what's your name?
Thank you for coming.
Yes, perfect. Why is that important? Who can tell me why thank you for coming is so important? Yes.
Because it shows that you actually care that they were.
Exactly. I walked out of that store, nobody said a thing, and I just went to Amazon and bought it. And that's what a lot of people will do. I've done that a lot in different towns. I walk in because I want to support the local business, but if they don't have people like you that have good people skills, a lot of people, where can they go to buy nowadays? Pardon me?
What is it?
Pardon me?
I didn't say.
Oh, I'm sorry. What's their other option nowadays if they want to purchase something and they don't like the service in your store? Yes.
You go online.
Exactly, exactly. A lot of people do that. So you want to have great service. Any questions so far? I made a little cheat sheet here because I want to make sure I didn't forget to tell you anything. One thing I wanted to tell you too, the important thing in this book is people buy and donate to people they like and trust. So this is all about creating good relationships with your family, with your customers. How many of you, do any of you volunteer? That's great. Are you comfortable asking for a donation, asking for money? Good, good. And you're saying somewhat. Good. Well, the book will help you because I volunteer quite a bit and I get a lot of teens that will come up to me and they'll say, well, I want to really help. And I'll say, well, what we're doing today is we're raising $1,000 to save for life-saving surgery for one badly abused bear. And they'll say, ugh, well, I'll do anything, but I don't want to ask for money. And I'll tell them, well, that's why we're here. So being able to ask for that donation or that sale is critical. I'll give you a great example. Yesterday I called a woman's, it's a store in Bay City. They've got a big catalog. I want to get my book in that store because it'll get in the catalog. So this is the 6th phone call to the owner that I made. And I called, and the lady answered the phone properly, and she said, well, Terry, I said, is Terry there, please? And she said, well, she's on the phone with a customer. Can you hold? And I said, yes. Terry, got on the phone, she said, hello, this is Terry. I said, hi Terry, this is Kurt with the Smile and Succeed for Teens book that Flo gave you because one of her friends who owns 3 Hallmark stores in northern Michigan that carries this book gave it to her. So I wanted to remind her about that. And I said, I just wondered if you were ready to place an order and get Smile and Succeed for Teens in your store. And then I was quiet, following the lessons in this book. And guess what she said? Can anybody guess what she said next? Yes.
She said, sure, yes.
Luckily for me, she said, you know what? It's a pretty neat book. I looked through it. I'm willing to give it a try. And then I said, well, great. I will ship you them today and bill you net 30. So what I did, I immediately shipped them, so she'll get them tomorrow. And getting them, meaning today, getting them today, what does that do for her if she receives the books today that she ordered yesterday? Can anybody tell me how she'll feel getting those books today when she just, yes.
It was good and fast service.
Exactly. She'll be delighted because hopefully that will show that, hey, I'm on top of things where maybe some of these businesses, they'll get it to them in a week or something. Well, Christmas, the holiday is coming up, so that's really important. So things in this book are critical for you to know. Because if you don't get these basics right, the rest of it's not going to matter. You can have all the technology in the world. You can have fancy websites. You can have, iPads in your restaurant. You can do all that stuff. But if you don't get this right, it's not going to matter. People aren't going to come back. So that's huge. Any questions on anything so far? Or Emily, did you want to interject?
Well, the 7th graders right now are working on their careers, what they'd like to do with the rest of their lives.
Oh, good.
So, for
And I know
12-year-olds.
Caitlin wants to be a veterinarian, which is really
Yes,
cool.
so lots of them are thinking about the rest of their life, what kind of careers they want. Guys, what do you think about these skills that we've talked about in this book, kind of bringing that into the career you want?
That's a great question.
Okay? Think about what kind of careers you guys are working on, what kind of careers you want, and how you're going to need to be able to use these skills that you've learned in Mr. Menecky's book.
Caitlin, you want to be a veterinarian. How would these skills help you when you're a veterinarian?
If you're a veterinarian, you smile to the people who come with their animals and get them.
Exactly. It's critical because when you talk to people about, when you ask them, why did you go back to that doctor? Most of them say, well, he was just a really nice guy. A lot of times it has nothing to do with your knowledge of whatever industry you're in. Who's looking at different careers? Can you tell me what you're looking at? Yes.
Surgical doctor.
Why would these skills be important for a surgical doctor? I love that you said surgical doctor.
Because when you get the MRIs back and there's something wrong, you probably want to smile instead of having oh gosh, you tore your ACL.
Well, exactly. The people skills. You want, there's a lot of people that say when they talk to doctors, boy, I didn't understand. The doctor didn't smile. He just came in and went over all this jargon, and I didn't understand what he was saying. It makes a huge difference. You're absolutely right. When you make eye contact, smile, introduce yourself to the patient, and then explain what's going on with that MRI. Anybody else with their careers? Yeah, you in the checkerboard. Hi.
Anesthesiologist.
Oh, that's a great job. And why would the people skills in this book be important for you?
Like when you meet the people before they go into surgery, you can be nice to them and tell them good luck and stuff.
Because how are they feeling when they're...
nervous.
Yes, very nervous, exactly. Great points. So this,
Well, what I want to do.
Meredith, right?
Yeah, what I want to do is be a nurse of some sort, and the reason why I probably want tips from that book is because when you meet with the patients and the patients' parents, you have to smile and talk to them about what they have and what they need and stuff like that.
Perfect. That's huge. To smile, make those people feel comfortable, because how do people feel when they're in the hospital? Very nervous. And when they walk in your business, no matter what career you're in, you could be in banking, you could be a firefighter, you're always interacting with customers and you're interacting with fellow employees. And these people skills are critical for your success. And patients are not going to tell you, well, I didn't like your hospital, I'm going to go somewhere else. Most of them just leave and you'll never know it. Yes. What's your name?
Austin,
Hi, Austin.
pilot maybe.
Perfect. And how would these skills be important?
If you're doing like a passenger jet, you can be nice to your passengers.
Exactly. And I've even heard pilots where they come over the radio and say, okay, folks, we're going over the Grand Canyon now and just want to let you know we'll be there, and, we'll be arriving in 30 minutes, and their voice is very pleasant. Yes. Is it Ethan?
Uh-huh.
Hi, Ethan.
What I think I want to be when I grow up is an animator.
Oh, cool. And how would these apply?
Well, if you're like doing an interview or with your boss, or welcoming a new employee to the company or something.
Perfect. And you might be working with a client. I just hired a web company for my website to do SEO, search engine optimization. I hired him because I met him. He's a really nice guy. He knows his stuff, but he's also very easy to work with. And there are a lot of tech people that are not, that don't have really great people skills that I didn't hire. Emily, did you have other things that you wanted to interject?
We talked about being a professional athlete, how several of them would like to be a professional athlete. That might not be the best career move, but look at all the athletes that we see on TV and on the radio and online today, how important it is, if you're being an athlete, to have good people skills, being able to speak clearly, make good choices.
That's very important. Have you ever heard those interviews where the person is saying, yeah, we scored that goal, and Pavel Datsyuk, he passed me the puck, and I saw the opening, and the goalie slid to the side, and hear all the ums and ahs. That doesn't really represent the organization really professionally. So knowing how to speak professionally and talk to your agent and talk to the fans, and when you visit children's hospitals and different charities, having good people skills is critical, and to get along with your fellow teammates, it's very important.
What about some of you wanted to work in education? Okay, so lots of you wanted to be teachers, professors, okay, people like that. Okay, think of your teachers. What kind of people skills do we have, okay, that you need?
Oh yes, you have. Is it
Well,
Savannah?
yeah, I wanted to be a teacher, and for middle school, the easiest way to get your point across is to do like activities and stuff, and to focus on students while other students are doing stuff, so you can get your point across.
Exactly. The people skills give you a big advantage because sadly in our society, a majority of people working in business and people in general do not have great people skills, and for the 21st century, it's even getting worse because of all the technology. You see people buried in their cell phones. I walk my dog once a day, and I go by a lot of stores in these downtowns, and I see these people, and they don't have customers. The employees are looking at their cell phones. What kind of impression does that form if you were the person entering that business and you see somebody behind the counter just looking at their cell phone or texting? Yes.
Okay,
What's your
well,
first name?
Ryan.
Ryan, hi.
Well, they're kind of like, wow, these people don't really care that I just walked into their business.
Exactly. Even if you don't have any employees in your store, I know it's the 21st century, you never have that stuff out because you never know who is going to enter your store. And why is it important in this 21st century, for example, to answer the phone properly where you're going to work? Why is that so critical? Can anybody tell me? Yes.
Because they will either make people want to go into your store or not go.
Exactly. If you don't answer that phone properly, people have a lot of other choices, especially with the internet, especially nowadays. Answering that phone properly. Let's say you work at a nonprofit organization and some big foundation calls and they're interested in giving you a $2 million grant. If you answer it, Freedom Festival, are they really going to be that impressed? Versus if you said, good morning, Freedom Festival, this is Mary, how may I help you? If they're going to invest money in you, they're really looking at, does this place have it together? Does this business, when you're a customer, does this business have it together? Is this where I want to shop and spend my hard-earned money? Anything else, Emily, that you
Remember, guys, we were talking about, when we read this book a few weeks ago, we talked about jobs you guys are going to be doing soon. What kind of jobs are you going to be doing soon? Probably, Sammy is not going to be a doctor tomorrow. Okay, what kind of jobs are you going to be working at? Next?
I kind of want to work at Novi, the Imagine Theaters.
Okay, you want to work in a movie theater. Ryan, what about you?
Lawn mowing.
Okay, good. Landscaping.
In the
Yes.
back, you with the,
Babysitting?
perfect.
Okay, what kinds of, you guys are gonna be working at those kind of service jobs. Okay, what kind of things do you need to be able to do to be successful at those jobs?
Savannah?
You need to have the customer trust you.
Exactly. These people skills, for all the jobs you just mentioned, and I used to have a lawn mowing service, what will get you that job are your people skills. Because if you knock on somebody's door and ask them if you can mow their lawn, or have a flyer and they call you, they're thinking, well, he or she probably knows what he's doing mowing the lawn, but can I trust him? And is it a nice person to deal with? So if you're polite, if you smile, make good eye contact, have good manners, say please, thank you when you're welcome, you're at a huge competitive advantage out there. Sadly, because in the 21st century, we've got all this technology, and you walk down any street in America, and you'll see kids and adults glued to their cell phones. And I had a meeting with a couple of realtors the other night, and the one lady was stuck on her cell phone. We didn't use them. So that's the problem, but that's also a great advantage for you, because use this. It's a battle out there for jobs. Use this as your competitive weapon. That really is the key. Emily, anything else?
What do you guys think?
Any questions
Any
from
other
anybody?
questions?
Oh, yes.
Well, I don't see what's the point of bringing your cell phone to work anyway, and I don't know why people would do it, because they know they're gonna get in trouble, but they do it anyway, so I don't know why.
That's a very good point. You leave it at home if you can.
Well, unless it's an emergency.
Yeah, and if it's an emergency, your parents can always call the store or wherever you work. That's, years ago, we did that same thing. Yes, in the back.
Adding the Meredith's question, they could bring their phone, like, if they need it to, like, use, like, conference calls maybe, like my mom works before. We
Oh,
do,
sure.
like, a lot of conference calls every day.
Sure, and it depends on the policy of the store, but thank you, and that's a very good point. If you're working at Ace Hardware, you probably don't need your cell phone, and like the example I gave earlier, if you have it out, the boss is probably gonna say you either put that away or you go home, then you've got a choice there. That's what I would say. If I had a store nowadays, my rule would be no cell phones, you don't need them, and you're gonna turn off a customer, and I can't afford, when I had our store, I was always thinking, I can't afford to have you lose a customer. I need somebody like AJ here who's good with people and I can trust that they're gonna add value. And when somebody comes in, maybe Caitlin comes in to buy something, that he knows how to properly help them, and he knows also how to help them buy other things. So they come back, tell their friends, and bring more people. So that's what you're thinking when you're hiring somebody. Can I trust this person with my customers that I've worked so hard to get? Because I'm not gonna hire you if you've got an attitude and you're thinking you're gonna pull your cell phone out all the time, you're gone. And that's how a lot of these employees think. I don't put up with that for a second. And if you cannot fill a job application out properly, that's what the manager said at the restaurant too. He said, these kids, they can't even fill out an application, it's all text. So we expect as an employer you to fill that application out properly, have good eye contact, and have good manners. That's all we're asking. Yeah, did you have a question? I'm sorry.
No,
Oh, I'm sorry.
it was what she was saying.
Oh.
Like if it was like an emergency.
Sure. And if it's an emergency, they've got phones at the stores also. Anything else, Emily?
I don't think so.
Any questions from anybody?
Do you have any questions for you? A lot of you guys asked me questions about Mr. Nike as an author. Anybody have any questions about him being an author? Who wrote a book?
Oh, yes. Is it, I'm sorry, your first name?
Max.
I was thinking, I almost said Matt, but I didn't want to be wrong.
What, is this like the only book you've written?
This is the second one. I wrote my first one. It's called Smile, Sell More with Amazing Customer Service. It's a crash course in sales and customer service. Then I had so many moms and teachers come up to me and tell me, Kurt, you've got to get this book in the schools, which I had never thought of. So I went a step further and created this just for the teens. Any other questions on it? Yes.
Do you like Star Trek?
You know what? Now I do. The old one. When I was little, I never liked it. Do you like it?
Yes.
It's fun, isn't it? Oh, there you go. Ethan, did you have a question? Oh, there. Anybody else have questions on being an author? One thing I will tell you about being an author is it's very, very hard to write a good book. It's easy to write a lousy book. It's an enormous amount of work. It's exhausting. And then you have to go out and sell it. So if you're going to be an author, you have to be really good at sales, you have to be hyper-focused, and you have to learn to say no a lot. You have to focus on what strategy works for you, and it's all about selling. You create a great book, and then you have to promote it and sell. I mean, I work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and I have to say no to a lot of people because everybody will have ideas for you and want you to do this or want you to do that, and if you fall into that trap, you will make no money. A lot of authors do that. They run around all over the place. They sell 5 books there, 100 books there. You've got to be selling in bulk, 5,000 books, 1,000 books. My buddy's an author, sells in quantities of 5,000. You know, he's got them in Joann Fabrics and Michaels, some regional stores out east. So you've got to think big and be in the thousands of sales. And your time is money. You have to think about, how am I using my time effectively? But again, you want to use the techniques in this book because just like I did yesterday, you can't be afraid to ask for the sale. So it's an enormous amount of work, and it's tough to make money. Most authors do not make money because they do not like to sell. So you have to get over that, and that's why this book is so important. Any other questions? Oh, yes.
What made you want to become an author?
Well, I had my first business, and I went in so many stores, and when we had our business, we created a 6-week training program before we would allow any employees to interact with customers, and that was after hiring really nice people. So I noticed so many businesses, I was just tired of walking in businesses and nobody's saying hi, nobody's smiling. I would have never tolerated that in my business. So I thought, okay, they obviously don't have a training program, let me create a book for them, and they can easily use it as a crash course to teach their employees. So that's why I wrote that. And I was working for Carl Sams at the time, a book author. And I saw that he was doing really well, and I thought, boy, if I can do really well with these books, maybe in 5 or 10 years I can give back. I can have enough money to say, you know what, there's some big problems in the world that just need some money and some better marketing to fix them. You know, human trafficking, animal welfare, our environment. The message is not effective, so maybe I can have the money to meet with some ad agencies and say, let's fix this. You know, we're not reaching the people, we're not converting them. What type of ads? Maybe it's Facebook images with some text on it. What can we do to help these organizations be more effective? So my long-term goal is really to help solve some of the world's problems if I can sell enough books. It's always a risk, so that's why I went into it. Yes?
How does it feel to like be an author and write a book and like having people buy your stuff, and have you had any compliments on it?
Yeah, actually, luckily, and it goes back to you have to write a good book. This was grueling writing this. The first one was grueling. This was even worse because it's got 50 illustrations, and every one of those illustrations you see in that book had to be redone about 20 times. The captions were redone about 12 times, and the book we rewrote about 100 times. So if you write a good book by putting that effort into it, and I had great input from moms, teachers, and teens, then I get a lot of compliments. I had a lady the other day, I was at a senior complex where my parents live. This mom came up to me and she said, oh, I've got this book, and she said, I bought it for my son, and he's kind of rough, he's a hunter, he's in 10th grade, and I thought he'd either like it or not, and he loves it. He came up to me and he said, Mom, I want to take this book to my teacher. So you get those compliments because you took the time to get great input from people and write a good book. Luckily, I had a lot of great input. Any other questions? Oh, yes, Matt.
I forgot what
Oh, that's okay. If you think of it, let me know.
Toy.
Oh, yes. What's your name?
Tor.
Oh, hi, Torm. Is it Torm with an M?
No, just Tor.
Oh, Tor, I'm sorry.
How long did it take to make this book?
This took about a year. My first one took about a year and a half. And a year, working 12 hours a day, 16 hours a day on it. And remember, you're up in the middle of the night because the designers you're working with have a full-time job in New York, so they can only work at night. And then we're doing a teaching guide for it, which has been just as difficult as this book because we want to make that really good too. Yes, Caitlin?
It's about this volunteering I did. I went to Mission City. It used to be City Mission, but they had to change it. And they take a bunch of food from, I can't remember what this company's called. The company gives them food and we pass it out in Detroit.
Oh, that's great. That is wonderful, and you're involved with that. Good job. You kids have the skills to change the world, I'll tell you that. A lot of the adults that I volunteer with, they don't want to ask for money. We need people that can ask for their donation because all these organizations are struggling because they don't have enough money. Matt?
Do you think you're going to make a third book?
If I mean, I'll never do another one like this again, or my first one, because it was really exhausting. I don't think I could do it again. With the notes in the back, the index, everything that had to be double checked. People think you just kind of write a book, and that's not it. It's because it's amazing amount of work. I'll never do another one like this as the first. It just about killed me. I mean, it's really tiring. If I did another one, it would be a children's picture book for like elementary school. Because those are easy, one picture, one sentence. No notes, no index, no table of contents. Any other questions? Well, thank you so much for having me. I want to leave you with one important message. Read the book and take the information out of it to be the best person you can. In the words of Gandhi, be the change you want to see in the world. Thank you so much for having me.